All right, guys, we have a great deal of work to do with this one. So here in just a few moments after I give you an introduction to this, we're going to go ahead and you can put this thing in much faster mode here because I'm going to work through this. As a matter of fact, this is going to be the first time that I'm actually doing this portion of the lab, but not the first time that I've ever hooked up an electronic clutch brake. So what we're going to do is we have to install that clutch brake, and I'm going to talk through that a little bit, and then we're going to move this forward because that clutch brake is going to take up some room, and then we're going to go ahead and have to mount our pulleys on here, which I didn't tell you in the intro, but we are going to use some pulleys. We're going to take the biggest and the smallest from the pulleys lab and make sure that we have the appropriate belt, set all that stuff up. And then we're actually going to use what you can't see right now, but that controller behind you that I already talked about. We're going to plug right into that and make that work. So we're going to go ahead and start off here. I'm reaching behind and I'm grabbing this clutch brake assembly that we already talked about. And what I'm going to do is make sure that I have the appropriate T-handle here, which I do. And I'm going to go ahead and try to line this up. All right, so the very first thing is I have to line up this key on here because that has to drive. And it looks like I'm there for the most part. So the key really should be in good shape. If the key is not in good shape, this is going to be a nightmare for you. So once I get this up against the housing, at that point, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to rotate this around, okay? Because this doesn't do anything unless it's actually electrified, all right? So I can't really do anything with this. If for some reason I'm having a really hard time getting this done, I can actually plug this into my clutch brake over here on this system, which again, you can't see it because I'm behind you, but we're going to plug that in. And then I'm going to go ahead and electrify this so that I can rotate it. Now, this is only necessary if for some reason you can't get that thing to line up. We're going to turn this on, and what we're going to do is we're going to clutch. So now by clutching, I can actually look in here and rotate this around and get to my set screw. Now, obviously, as well, you may have to get a little flashlight in here to find it. Okay, there it is. All right, now I got that tightened down. You can rotate, find the second one, and repeat that process. Now, the other thing you're going to notice is that this doesn't have to be in a particular orientation, but you do want to consider the orientation so that you don't nothing runs into it. So you don't want to get into the belts or any other operating portion of that. So I'm going to rotate this around to where it's where I kind of like it. And I'm going to go ahead and install these bolts here. Now these bolts are kind of like stacking bolts, so you could actually bolt something on top of this if you needed to. So it's kind of cool. We're not going to be stacking anything on this in this particular lab, but that is what that's for, and that's why they were kind of stuck together. So I'm going to try to run these up reasonably quick. This is where you can fast forward because don't have any power tools for this. So we're going to snug them down. Snug that down. And it's always a great idea to check your torque on all of those. All right, so now that we have that done, we're in reasonably good shape there. I'm going to reach over here and grab some keys, okay, because I don't want to lose them. And I'm going to find one that looks in good shape because we don't have to fight with that. I'm going to go ahead and slide. Oop, looks like somebody's got that set screw down, so we're going to back that set screw out just a little bit so I can get my key in it. And I'm going to slide that on, so that looks good. I'm not going to tighten that up yet because I'm probably going to have to make some adjustments here when we get there. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to unbolt this guy. Now, if you've noticed already, this inertial load is still there. If you want to lighten things up, you could take it off because it does have a little bit of weight to it. But I'm going to leave it on because I don't need to really change it at this moment. Now what I'm going to do is slide this guy out of the way. And now I have a choice. I can either take these nuts here out, all right, which is actually kind of like a push down and turn, and then I can reinstall them over here, or I can actually go over to the piping and grab a different set of unistrut fasteners or nuts or whatever you want to call them and put them in there. Now, when I go to do this, it may be a good idea to make certain that I have the appropriate distance. So again, I'm looking at 2 inches. So when I go to put this together here, I want to make sure that there's about 2 inches. If not, you're going to fight trying to get that lined up. So we're going to push down and turn. And then I'm going to make sure that there's 2 inches in between them. And then we're going to repeat the process over here. Now, when you push down on these, sometimes they'll only turn in one direction. So you got to keep that in mind. They have a little bit of a bevel, and I'll show you with the second one here. If you see, it's got like a little bevel right there, and that allows it to turn into the track that way. If you try to go the other way, it won't actually work well. So I'm going to push down. I'm going to turn. Then I'm going to make sure that these are semi-lined up, which it looks like it. And then I'm going to get my 2 inches in between, which it looks like it. And now I should have an easy go to slide this over and have it somewhat line up. Now, once I get these bolts started inside of those channel nuts, I will be able to do some minor sliding and minor modifications here. So you can already see the benefit of this, how this just moved out and gets me more in line with that over there. Okay. So I may have to make some minor adjustments to this once it gets closer to being bolted down to make sure that it's sitting straight, but I can do that very simply with a straight edge. So I'm going to take these bolts here, take them down to where they're kind of snug and not super duper tight, just enough to where I got a little bit of torque to turn on there. Then it'll allow me to take a rubber hammer and kind of tap this around as needed. So now what I'm going to do is kind of see, yeah, that looks good. So we can line that up. I'm going to need to grab another key. That's a pretty key right there. Hopefully it's going to work well for me. And then slide this together. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. Now, back to our tools. We can put this together here. So that looks like a good spot because I have some adjustment in and out on both of these. So I'm going to go ahead and run this set screw down. And it helps if you use the right size. Now that I've tightened that one, what I now can do is put a little pressure on it and see where we're at. Looks like this needs to come out some. And it does look like we're a little bit crooked. So I can usually take a hammer, rubber mallet or something like that. Because remember, I didn't tighten this up. So I'm going to be able to kind of make some adjustments here or there. I'm going to make sure this stays semi-focused for you guys. And then get back to checking this. You can move this in. It straightened it up very nicely. Okay, so now that I have my alignment, I can go ahead and use the right Allen key and snug it down and then re-verify. Yep, it all looks good. And now I can go ahead and put my belt on. Now, I'm really hoping that this belt is going to be the right distance. If not, I'm going to have to loosen up this whole unit and slide it towards the clutch brake assembly. But it looks like I'm going to get away with this. All right. Now, we go back to the whole idea of the belt tensioning, okay? Remember, there is a tool for that, and it's going to be in this lab right here. We take the distance, and again, it's a 64th per inch of distance away is how far it goes down at a certain amount of pounds. So again, you're going to use your straight edge, use that tool to figure out how tight this is going to be. For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and snug it up through my experience to make sure that we're in good shape. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that all of my tools are straightened up here. And we can put the safety guard back on, remove our lockout tag out, and we can plug in. Now, everything looks safe and secure. I'm going to step off to the side here, and I'm going to make sure that my thing is in neutral. Now, remember, I hooked up to the power supply on the mechanical training system because it has the clutch brake, okay? And so the motor doesn't run through that. It's only allowing this thing here to freewheel, okay? Or locking it up to the motor or making it not freewheel whatsoever, okay? So let's take a quick look at that. I know the lockout tagout's off, bear with me, but if you notice here, I can move this thing. Now, if I go over and I switch this thing to brake, whoa, I can't move that anymore, all right? So regardless of what's happening with the motor, I can actually stop my load from moving, all right? So let's go ahead back to neutral right now. And then what I'm gonna do is make sure everything is clear, and I'm gonna fire up my motor. But wait a minute, nothing's turning. Why isn't it turning? Well, the reason it's not turning is because this clutch brake is in neutral, so that motor is turning inside of it. Now what I'm gonna do over here is I'm gonna go over, making sure everything is clear, and I'm gonna turn on clutch, and you're gonna see this thing fire right up. Neutral, brake. neutral, clutch, brake. All right. So that right there is a very common system for different types of drives within within a manufacturing or any kind of a processing environment. So hopefully you got something out of this. Now, obviously, lockout tagout goes back on. Then this thing is dismantled the way that we put it together, put all the things away, and then we'll get on to our last portion.